The LinkedIn Podcast Network is sponsored by TIAA. TIAA makes you a retirement promise, a promise of a guaranteed retirement paycheck for life. Learn more at TIAA.org/promises pay off.
LinkedIn presents.
The ability to have a high EQ, really high emotional intelligence, having a little bit of empathy, having a real power to kind of sit back and not just think about yourself, but read the room. What motivates people? What hurts people? What gets people to do things they don't even know they're capable of doing? And I think if you can master the soft power, you'll have far, far more power than you would ever have by just asserting it by fiat or because of the title that you hold or because of the number of people that you manage.
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday. This is the Next Big Idea Daily, and I'm your host, Michael Kovnat. Don't you ever wish that life came with an instruction manual? I do. I mean, parents and teachers try their best, but for the most part, we're on our own when it comes to navigating the uncertainties of career and relationships. Jim VandeHei has tried to create such a manual with his New York Times best-selling book, Just the Good Stuff: No BS Secrets to Success, No Matter What Life Throws at You. Jim is someone who didn't seem marked for success. He barely got into college. He was a pretty lackluster student, but once he found a passion for politics and journalism, he caught fire, and he went on to co-found two of the most prominent media sites around, Politico and Axios, where he's currently the CEO. Jim's life path has taught him a few things, and he joins us now to share some of them with us.
Almost every lesson I learned by screwing it up the first time. I didn't go to school to be an entrepreneur. I didn't go to school to be a CEO. So everything I learned on the ground. And one of the cool things about my job is I'm a journalist turned CEO. So I took very close notes along the way so that I could help other people from similar backgrounds or people who are in leadership to really deal with some of the tough stuff of life and tough stuff of leadership. I was born in Wisconsin, in Oshkosh, was not a great student, spent more time drinking beer than worrying about biology or my classes. And I think I'm proof that it doesn't really matter where you start. It's really kind of what you do with what you have and really understanding yourself and taking advantages. Zotega is a word I learned in Malawi doing a missions trip with my boys, and it means it's possible. The word moved me so much that I got the first tattoo of my life and stamped it on my shoulder when I returned because I was so inspired by this sense of purpose that the people there had despite, a pretty bad situation around them. And the reason I start the book with It's Possible is that really is my story. There was nothing about me, had you met me at the age of 20, that said, hey, this guy is going to go on to cover the White House, interview presidents, start companies, make a lot of money, sell companies, and be a CEO 2 times over. Nothing at all. There's nothing remarkable about my grades, my performance, my extracurricular activities. And my point is that it doesn't matter if you grew up in Oshkosh or you went to Yale or you come from great privilege, that anything is possible. It's the beautiful thing about America. And I think there's a lot of people like myself who come from small towns or come from, not come from privilege or money or connections, who have a real chip on their shoulder. And when I moved out to DC, I had that. I always assumed everyone was going to be smarter than me and more connected than me. And I quickly learned that if I sort of applied what I learned in Wisconsin about hard work and honesty and grit, that those can carry you a long way, especially if you tether it to something you're really, really passionate about. I think anything really is possible if you just find something that you would maybe do for free, that you enjoy that much, that you can throw that much of yourself in. I've had the privilege of working with thousands of people. I've hired thousands. I've had to let go of a lot of people. I've really learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work. And the type of person that I guess that I aspire to be, or that I just want to be around, the older I get, are, we used to call them killers with humility, and people thought that was a little too aggressive, so we changed it to selfless superstars. But the idea is you want to be around people who are really smart, who are really motivated, who are really hardworking, but that are also good people that put the company or the unit or the team above their own ambition. Life is just too short to spend time with people who are either narcissistic or just so self-absorbed, so motivated by what benefits them. Those are the people who cut corners and do bad things. And so if you find yourself in a place where you're working with folks like that, just get the hell out. There's no upside to it. If you can, run. If you work for a boss like that, I try to move on. It's such a bad way to live life, and it's so deflating. And I think for a lot of us, especially folks who choose sort of the professional world and maybe live in a city where there's different job opportunity, or chosen a profession where it is, you do have the options to sort of make sure you get away from those type of people and really gravitate towards selfless superstars, and yourself trying to be a selfless superstar. I knew nothing about leadership when I became a leader. I went from being a White House reporter at the Washington Post one day to having to help start Politico, be an entrepreneur, ultimately become the CEO. And back then, I just had one gear. It was all just like, go, go, go. Kind of like Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers, just drive it, drive it, drive it. And I grew up, at least the early years of my career, where hard power still worked, where a lot of people kind of had this throwback attitude about work, and you could, you mainly a male-dominated leadership at a lot of these companies where it was hard charging and big drinking and tough talking. And what I realized is that hard power is vastly overrated. Vastly overrated. If you're really good at what you do and you're a really good leader, the real power comes from soft power. The ability to have a high EQ, really high emotional intelligence, having a little bit of empathy, having a real power to kind of sit back and not just think about yourself, but read the room. What motivates people? What hurts people? What gets people to do things they don't even know they're capable of doing? And I think if you can master the soft power, you'll have far, far more power than you would ever have by just asserting it by fiat, or because of the title that you hold, or because of the number of people that you manage. And I do think the EQ, like your IQ, is something you can work on over time. I think I look back and I realize how much I benefited from playing a lot of poker and being a bartender back in Wisconsin, because both being a bartender and playing poker, forces you to interact with a lot of different people, forces you to read people, and teaches you finesse and nuance, which are just essential ingredients to soft power. Candor. It is a hallmark of the culture at Axios, candor. And candor is not licensed to be a jerk and just say what's ever on your mind. It's about being brutally honest with yourself about your strengths or weaknesses, or about an individual situation, and giving people the gift of candor in difficult situations for them. I remember sitting at the Washington Post back when I was a reporter, and I knew there were reporters that they didn't like and they didn't think much of, but they were making enough money, so they wouldn't tell the reporter what they were doing wrong. They might put him in a more remote bureau, or they would just put him in a beat they didn't care as much about. And I always hated that, because if I was that person, I wish someone would say, hey, you're not that great of a reporter. I really wish you could write better, or I wish you could report better. That person deserves the right to become better at what they do. And I learned that pretty early at Politico, once I got into leadership, this power of candor, of just sitting down with people and being really honest with them about the things they do well, but the things that they don't do well. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And you can do it in a very respectful way. But to me, especially once you're in a position of power, if you're going to fire someone or you're going to force someone out, by the time it happens, it should never be a surprise. You should have been in constant conversation with that person, being very clear, very vivid about the things that they weren't doing that they need to correct to be able to stick around. If anyone's surprised by the time that you let them go, 95% of the time, that's on you. It means you were ducking the hard stuff. No one likes difficult conversations. I don't love difficult conversations, but it's a gift. It really is. It's a gift you give other people. And I think you can create a culture of candor. You can create a culture of honesty, which just then cuts down on the mischief and all the ickiness of work and relationships that you really want to avoid. I end the book with a bucket of insights about some of the good stuff, like some of the stuff about really thinking of holistically about life, not just about work, because I don't think you can really separate your life from your work. Like people talk about work-life balance. I don't really know what that is. I guess some people do. I love what I do, so it's kind of blended into everything that I do. I love politics. I love media. I love running businesses. So like even my social conversations tend to revolve around that. But one of the things I've done and learned to do is create a happiness matrix. That's what I call it. And in my happiness matrix is basically what are the things that I need to really pay attention to make sure that I'm kind of a happy, fulfilled boss, person, husband, father. And for me, the buckets tend to be my faith, my health, my marriage, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my immediate family and my closest friends, my hobbies, love to fly fish, love to exercise, love to hike. And I really try to do an inventory of those buckets on a regular basis, because if something's off or if I'm grumpy or I'm just not performing optimally, it's usually because one of those buckets is low. Maybe I haven't been spending enough time with my wife. Maybe I haven't given enough attention or affection to my children. Maybe I've let my faith slip. Maybe I've let my health go because I've not been focused enough on it. And I think all of us need to do that. I really do. One of the big points I have in the book, and I'll kind of leave you with, is this idea. I'm surprised so many people treat life like they're a bobber in the water, just floating along with the current. What we read, what we eat, how we treat other people, how we think about our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, like all of those things make us us. And all of those are things that we control. And all of those things, if controlled, help us to perform more optimally at work, but also more importantly, more optimally at life and get more out of our, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, whatever we have with our turn on earth.
Thank you, Jim. All right, everyone. I hope you're ready to work on your happiness matrix today. And if part of what makes you happy is learning and self-growth, consider the Next Big Idea Club your partner. We've got an app, a book subscription service, audio and video masterclasses, and a bunch of other cool stuff to help you on your way. Check it all out at nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY for a nice discount. Come on back tomorrow when I'll have some more life hacks for you from the new book, Micro Skills, Small Actions, Big Impact. I'm Michael Kavnet. See you then.